Warm good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another Leader Insight session of KMA this Friday evening. And this is the, as you all know, the last speaker meeting for this particular month. And we're indeed happy and glad that Vice Admiral Murali is addressing us today. Before we begin the meeting, I would request all of you to stand up for the silent prayer. Now, I would request our Treasurer, Mr. Dilip Narayanan, to kindly address us with the welcome speech and introduction of our speaker.
Good evening. Good evening. Respected President, M.P Muralidharan, Speaker of the Day, Vice Admiral Muralidharan, Honorary Secretary Anil Joseph, past Presidents, Managing Committee members, invited guests, KMA members, ladies and gentlemen. Today we heard a sad news about the loss of lives due to the massive earthquake at Myanmar. Before I begin, let's pay homage to those lost lives in our neighboring nation. Please stand for a minute. Thank you. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you all to this edition of the KMA Leader Insight series. I would like to sincerely thank each one of you for being here this evening as we engage in a dialogue on a subject of immense national importance, the relevance of maritime domain for India. At KMA, we have always believed in fostering conversations that truly matter, and today's topic resonates deeply with India's strategic, economic, and geopolitical priorities. It's now my great pleasure to introduce and welcome the distinguished speaker for this evening, who is a very well-known figure among all our audience, Vice Admiral M.P Muralidharan, AVSM and Bar, now Sena Medal, a towering figure in India's maritime and strategic ecosystem. An alumnus of the prestigious National Defence Academy and a postgraduate in Defence Studies, Vice Admiral Muralidharan has had an illustrious naval career spanning close to 4 decades. He has commanded 3 warships, including the formidable guided missile destroyer INS Ranvijay, and has held several key roles, including Naval Assistant to the Chief of Naval Staff and Naval Attaché at the Indian Embassy in Moscow. His leadership journey is adorned with several milestones. Notably, he was the first Commandant of the Indian Naval Academy, a role that significantly shaped the future leadership of our Navy. He has also served as Chief of Personnel of the Indian Navy and culminated his distinguished career as the 19th Director General of the Indian Coast Guard, retiring in 2013. Even post-retirement, the Admiral continues to contribute to equal vigor. He served as a member of the Armed Forces Tribunal at the Kochi Regional Bench, a position equivalent to the High Court judge. He remains a keen student of maritime and defense strategy, contributing regularly to the professional journals and engaging in seminars and strategic forums across the country. His service has been recognized with some of the highest military honors, the Ati Vishishta Seva Medal, awarded twice, and the Nav Sena Medal, a testament to his exceptional leadership and dedication to the nation. We are indeed privileged to have with us today a speaker whose insights are shaped not merely by academic knowledge, but by decades of lived experience at the helm of India's maritime force. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in extending a warm and respectful welcome to Vice Admiral. I would also like to take this opportunity to extend a hearty welcome to our President Bibu Punnuran, Honorary Secretary Dr. Anil Joseph, past presidents and members of the Managing Committee. Mr. Shaktimani is here. A warm welcome as well to all our distinguished members, invited guests and students who are present with us today. And a special welcome to PD Venugopal C. Govind. In Broadway, we always call it PD. It's not appropriate here to use that word. Thank you, and I wish all you a thought-provoking and enriching evening. Thank you.
Chief guest of the day, most respected Vice Admiral Muralidharan, Honorary Secretary Anil Joseph, Honorary Treasurer Dilip, most respected VCG Sir, Managing Committee members, dear KMA members, and everyone else present here. Dr. Sujit, you can come to the front. There's a seat waiting for you. Actually, today's topic is the relevance of maritime domain for India. And we have been very lucky to have our own, I would say, Vice Admiral Murali to address us. Why I say our own is because, he is there, I think, for every meeting out here. And for me, personally, he is my next door neighbor. And some days he says, I didn't see you in the morning for that walk and all that. So, because he can see me from his balcony, whether I'm walking or whatever I'm doing. So, on a personal note, I'm very happy that he's here with us today, addressing us on a very, very relevant topic, especially in these times. I'm actually reminded of the time a few years back when we went, a few of us, we have this movement in Rotary called Salute Soldiers, wherein, a few of us pull ourselves together and we go to one of the borders of India, and we see the way in which our soldiers or the people who guard our nation take care of our nation. So I was lucky to go a few years back. I think that was the last edition of this we had to Kutch in Gujarat, and Dilip was just saying about the Myanmar earthquake. And as we all know, Kutch earthquake devastated our country many years back. And post that, we had been there. So we were staying in this town of Kutch, and then we had to move because of special permissions granted. If not, we are not supposed to get into that area. About 20-21 kilometers deep into you can't call it forest, you can't call it barren land. You can see a few saltish kind of what do you call it, landscape out there. It's a little bit of it is salt, but then it's mostly dry. And end of this, it's a torturous journey for people like us. And end of this, you will see a water body, which is part of the sea, I believe, Admiral. It's part of the sea. And that is the area which borders or separates that particular sea, separates India and Pakistan. And so, we should actually be not only be saluting our soldiers or people like him and their entire armed forces, because they are away into this place. This 21-kilometer drive into that place would take us a few hours to get to that place. So just imagine the plight of the people who are staying there and kind of taking care of us all throughout. Because once they get in there, communication is limited. They cannot come out from there. And Pakistan being Pakistan, there is always these kind of infiltrations happening, either by sea or through land. And hats off to people like Admiral Murali and their teams. They're all taking care of us one way or the other. And I believe there are ships also always patrolling our borders to see that we are kept intact. I always have felt that we are not giving back enough as a country. We are not giving back enough to our soldiers or anyone in our armed forces for that matter, including the border security force people who actually are there at the front line guarding our country. So lots of stories, I'm sure that from people like Admiral Murali, and earlier we used to always joke, when the Patalakaran comes home and then he says, "Njan anna borderland," those kind of stories. But then actually, if you visit the borders only, you will understand the reality of what they face out there and how comfortably we are able to live in this country, in this place, any part of India for that matter, because of such noble souls. I don't want to keep you, because this subject per se is not too common with all of us, I should say. And we have an expert here, a person who had the highest ranking in the Navy with us today. And like we said, we have taken him for granted because he's one among us. But then we should also understand that there are so many noble souls like him who are with us, who are among us. But then they have done their role and they're still doing their role in guarding us as a nation. With this, I would once again like to thank you, Admiral Murali, for accepting our invitation to address us, and we look forward to an enriching evening with you. Thank you and welcome.
Mr. M.P Muralidharan, President KMA, Dr. Anil Joseph, Secretary KMA, Dilip Narayan, Treasurer, distinguished members of KMA, and our senior mentor in Rotary and elsewhere, Sri Venugopal C. Govind. Ladies and gentlemen, at the outset I would like to thank the KMA for giving me an opportunity to interact with you and speak on this topic, which is very much relevant to our nation. Those of us from the coastal states are aware of the maritime issues, but we are more, looking at, has today the fishing catch come, or is a beach washed by the, by waves, etc. Can boats go out today, that kind of thing. Very few of us look at maritime sector as a major issue and look at all the perspective. So over the next 20-25 minutes, let me try and give you an overview of the maritime issues and how it impacts India. The 21st century is often spoken of as the century of the seas, as the reasons are very evident. Seaborne trade, which has been a vital component of the world trade through ages, since it has been the cheapest mode of transport for conveying large volumes of cargo over long distances. The globalization of trade and commerce, increasing interlinking of economies, and the fact that bulk of trade takes place via the maritime routes has further raised the relevance of maritime domain. Additionally, today we have dwindling resources on land, which is also compelling us to have a relook at the oceans with their seemingly large untapped resources. Now, as far as India is concerned, a quintessential maritime character and geostrategic location had defined our growth as a nation over centuries. It can confidently say that our maritime links and legacy is as old as the Indian civilization itself. Sardar K. M. Panikkar, a diplomat, historian, strategic thinker and statesman who actually played a very significant role in revival of maritime thinking in modern India, observed that as a peninsula washed on its three sides by the Indian Ocean, she was from the earliest period of her history a country with dominant interests on the sea. Now, archaeological evidence found in Mohenjo-daro in 3000-2500 before Christian era indicates that even at the time of Indus Valley civilizations, Indians had regular seafaring activities. The Rig Veda mentions sea voyages, and as a prayer seeking blessings for safe passages across the ocean, it says, "O Lord, take us in a ship across the oceans for our well-being." Incidentally, the motto of modern Indian Navy, Shano Varun, meaning "O Lord, Varuna be tranquil," is from Rig Veda. Now, shipping was a very systematic and regulated activity in ancient India. Manusmriti, the ancient legal texts provided for maritime trade rules. Now, Kautilya's Arthashastra, compiled over 2 million years ago, indicates the post of a chief controller of ports and aspects of port dues and customs duties. Now, Arthashastra very clearly states that pirate ships and enemy boats violating territorial limits should be destroyed. You can imagine we had piracy even in those days. Mauryan Empire had a board of shipping to look after shipping related activities. Thus, maritime issues was very much an integral part and thoughts in ancient India. Now, we had a historian called Radha Kumar Mukherjee who had analyzed India's maritime activities and linkages in the early part of the last century. And he said in his book, Indian Shipping, History of Seaborne Trade and Maritime Activity of the Indians from Earliest Times, Mukherjee said, we have ample evidence to show that for full 30 centuries, India stood out at the very heart of the old world and maintained a position as one of the foremost maritime countries. She had colonies in Pegu, which is the modern day Myanmar, in Cambodia, Java, Sumatra, in Borneo, and even in countries further east as far as Japan. India had ancient India had trading colonies in South China, in Malayan Peninsula, in Arabia, and in all the chief cities of Persia, all over east coast of Africa. She had cultivated trade relations not only with countries in Asia, but also with the whole of the then known world, including countries under the dominion of the Roman Empire, and both east and west, as you can see from the chart given there, became theatre of Indian commercial activity and gave scope to a naval energy and throbbing international life. Now, K. Panikkar propounded similar views in his study, which said, Asia and Western dominance, that is his book, he said, Indian ships had from the beginning of history sailed across the Arabian Sea up to the Red Sea ports and maintained intimate cultural and commercial connections with Egypt, Israel, and other countries of the Near East. Long before Hippolus had disclosed the secret of monsoon to Romans, Indian navigators had made use of these winds and sailed to Bab el-Mandeb. To the east, our mariners had gone as far as Borneo, and there were flourishing Indian colonies that existed over 1200 years in Malaya, islands of Indonesia, Cambodia, and Champa, which is the modern day Vietnam, and other areas of the coast. Indian ships from Ceylon made regular journeys to South China coast. A long tradition of maritime life was very much history of the peninsular India. However, despite such a long maritime tradition, there was a clear decline in maritime activities and thinking in India by the 13th century. This purely happened because the Mughals came from Central Asia and they had no recognition, they had not seen the seas. And therefore, by early 16th century, command of the sea was lost to Indian rulers. This resulted in the European powers, starting with Portuguese, taking control of the oceanic waters around India. Panikkar was of the firm view that India had never lost her independence till she lost command at sea in the first decade of the 16th century. Now, when talking of command of the seas, is not merely controlled by naval forces, but an entire shipping industry for trade and commerce. Indian shipping and shipbuilding was devastated under the colonial rule. In the words of Mukherjee, it resulted in the demise of one of the greatest national industries of India after a long and brilliant history, covering a period of more than 20 centuries. It therefore behoves on the government and all those interested in the progress of India to be fully alive to the importance and necessity of reviving and restoring on modern lines a lost industry so vitally bound with the prospects of Indian economic advancement. Now, K.M. Panikkar expressed similar views, and he had further analyzed for an all-round development of India as a naval power. He had taken and referred to the works of Alfred Mahan, the US Admiral of the 19th century. He talks of sea power, he talks of geographical position, physical conformation, extent of territory, population, etc. Now, Panikkar was also assessed the importance of the air power that had come in at that stage, and he included that in his studies. Now, the significance of activities of maritime activities in the Indian context was equally well appreciated by our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, while sailing on board the Indian ship Mysore in 1958. And he observed, and from this ship I looked at India and throughout the country and its geographical situation. On three sides of it there is the sea, and on the fourth high mountains. In a sense, our country may be said to be in the very lap of the oceans. In these circumstances, I pondered over our close links with the sea and how the sea had brought us together. From time immemorial, people of India had very intimate connections with the sea. They had trade with other countries and also built ships. Later, the country became weak. Now that we are free, we have once again realized the importance of the sea. We cannot afford to be weak at sea. Now, if you look closely at the picture, you will see two other Indian Prime Ministers there, Indira Gandhi and Rajiv. Rajiv and Sanjay were good small kids there traveling on board the ship. Now, while the above observations of Nehru are often quoted, what is not known that he expressed views on importance of maritime activities of India even earlier. In April 55, at a Congress Parliamentary Party meeting, Nehru remarked as to how the people of the great bulk of north of India are what might be said land-minded. They are not so conscious of the sea as the people of the sea coast south of India. On the aspect of defense of the nation, Nehru actually said that we have to be equally conscious of both land and sea apart from air, which is common to both. The whole conquest of India with the British, French, Portuguese all came about because we lost on the sea. The lack of consumption of sea power has been our undoing often in the past. For a country like India, sea is most important from defense point of view and from trade point of view. Now, subsequently, wanting a balance of power, he wrote in a letter to a defense minister, Mr. then K.N. Karju, in September 55, and he wrote that not all land forces can protect us from sea attacks. Air Force can protect us to some extent, but only to a very limited one just near our borders. The sea has no frontiers like land. India therefore has to play an important role in the ocean surrounding Earth. I do not mean to say that we should presume control of these oceans. That is too big a task. But we should be strong enough to resist control of any other power. Nehru had also opined on the types of ships the Navy needed, and he talked of a need for an aircraft carrier. He said it's really a moving airship which can be sent anywhere and stationed anywhere. Its mere presence gives strength to the Navy and to our defense position. It gives a certain command over the area where it can reach. Now, the naval operations during World War II in the Indian and Pacific Oceans, and more specifically the importance of Japanese Navy into our waters, which came right very close to Indian waters, and the emergence of thinkers like Mukherjee and Panikkar further raised the importance of sea power for India and why we should need. And of course, we were fortunate that Prime Minister Nehru also appreciated it. This resulted in the revival, and this led to the development of ports and associated infrastructure and the growth of Indian Navy from a virtually coastal force to a major maritime force with an air arm and aircraft carrier with 1961. No nation, including Japan, had stopped all its aircraft carriers, so we were the only Asian power to have an aircraft carrier, and we were the only 4 or 5 nations in the world had it. And then we were able to develop balanced Navy, a Coast Guard, and independent India developing our economic, industrial, scientific capabilities. We all see the shipyard here, which we have. It's also into building major warships, and we build aircraft carriers today and submarines, both conventional and nuclear. Now let me come to the maritime domain at a global level. By the last decade of the 20th century, if you look at it, world was looking at oceans for growth. Now significant oceans were evident from 70% of the earth is covered by sea, 2/3 of the population is within 100 miles of the coast, 150 of the 192 member states of the UN are coastal states, and 80% of cities and nearly all major trade and financial centers are on the coast or say 50 to 100 miles from the coast. Now, shipping remains the major, as global maritime trade is 80% by volume, 70% by value. There are about 54,000 ships roughly and generating 14 million jobs in the maritime sector. The total trade is estimated to be around 35,000 billion. Now, apart from transportation, oceans are also a major source for food, fish, metals, minerals, and energy resources. As resources go down on land, we're going to look at more and more. Now, as far as India is concerned, her strategic perspectives are influenced by geography, history, culture. The importance of maritime domain for modern India would be evident, as we are both a continental as well as maritime nation. While we have a territory over 3 million square kilometers and a land front of 15,000, India's coastline till recently was estimated to be around 7,500. But recent surveys using modern method has put our coastline at a little over 11,000 kilometers. Now we have a union, there are 9 coastal states, 4 union territories, close to 1,200 islands, and an exclusive economic zone of 2.2 million square kilometers. And with the continental shelf getting regularized, with probably another 0.5 million square kilometer will be added to us. Now, what not many know, we have also been allocated, we were allocated for 150,000 square kilometers area in central Indian Ocean, where after exploitation, we have retained 75,000 square kilometers. Right now, it's very expensive to exploit mineral, but as technology improves, we will be getting polymetallic modules from there, which will give us a lot of minerals. Apart from this, we also have interest in Antarctica. We have a permanent people situated there, and our scientists are there. And while seabed exploration started a little over 150 years ago, today now advancements permit us that up to 2,000 meters depth contour we can look for hydrocarbons, minerals, etc. So our area, 2.2 million square kilometer exclusive economic zone, 75,000 square kilometers southern Indian Ocean, and Antarctica all offer us great prospects for exploitation of metals and minerals. So while we develop technologies, we'll go in more for it. And our trade today is 90% by volume, 70% by values through the sea. And Indian exports by seas are almost close to 300 million, about 450 billion total imports and imports, or we have the area. And the Indian economy grows further, shipping of ports will be further. Now, dawn of this century also witnessed many shifts in global politics. Now, from Euro-Atlantic, it shifted to a Indo-Pacific view, making this region critically important to all major powers. Now, if you see, Indo-Pacific is a multicultural, multipolar region, accounting for nearly 60% of the world GDP, 65% of population, and 60% of maritime trade. It's also a major depository of marine resources, both living and non-living, and maritime trade transiting through the region, including energy flows, equally significant. It is the Persian Gulf, which is about 60% of the oil resources, 26% of the natural resource that goes through. The global maritime trade, as brought out earlier, is about 80% by volume and 70% by volume it happens. Of that, about 60% passes through the South China Sea. And it's a very vital area today. Almost 1/3 of global shipping passes through it. And it impacts virtually all major nations in the world. The waters of South China Sea are particularly critical for China, which is close to 64% of our maritime trade and 80% of our oil. And 42% of Japan's maritime trade also goes through it. In case of India, almost 55% of our trade worth 5 trillion passes through South China Sea. And our share with ASEAN nations is about almost 12% of our total worldwide trade. Now, if you look at Indian Ocean region, it's about 33% of the world's population, accounts for 50% of the maritime trade, and they say 50% of the container traffic, 70% of the global oil passes through this area. As was mentioned, now this is the oil arteries of the world. Now just look at India's position where all these go through. Now our location at the base of continental Asia, on top of the Indian Ocean, close to choke points of the ocean, all the choke points have been marked there through which the ships have to transit in very, very controlled areas. It gives us an added stake in the security and stability of the waters across the place. Now you will see these are the sea lanes of communications that go through this area, and there is India sitting right there, virtually in a position to safeguard, control, monitor the entire area. Now because of the importance of the area, you will find there are forces, maritime forces, including nuclear boats from US, UK, France, European Union, Russia and China, and many others operating in this area. Now, having looked at this, first how do we look at maritime security? Certainly becomes very important. And it became very evident towards the end of last century that our conventional battles between this is reducing. What does today happen is non-conventional maritime security challenges, terrorism, drug trafficking, all of you are familiar with the gentleman whose photo is there in the middle, arms trafficking, piracy, human trafficking, illegal migration, illegal unregulated fishing, and economic and environmental threats. Now, of course, we also have natural disasters which can create a major problem. Now, one of the major things is that a lot of unregistered ships under flags of convenience keep transiting through the area, very difficult to track. Another major issue is cyber security. UN UNTAD actually says that new technology transforming maritime transport, optimizing logistics management operations, technological advances include analytics, onboard sensors, 4.0 technologies are bringing in all this, big data. Now, one of the things is with that, today you're able to control ships. Now, you'll remember there was an accident in the Suez Canal and the ship got stranded there. And we had to virtually close down Suez Canal for some time, ships had to go down. Now, imagine somebody doing this remotely controlling and the channel to say Cochin is blocked, or Chennai is blocked, or Bombay is blocked. You will find that that's the kind of threat that can arise due to these modern technologies that can happen. Now, apart from non-conventional challenges, as far as India is concerned, Pakistan continues to be a threat, encouraging terrorist elements inimical to India. And as you recall from the lines of communication, especially our critical energy flows from Persian Gulf normally pass very close to Pakistan and is therefore susceptible to interdiction not only in times of conflict but also from unconventional threats by terrorist elements nurtured by Pakistan. While China is not a literal of the Indian Ocean region, the rise of China's assertive political behavior expansion in the Indian Ocean region is something that is threatening. It's a threat to us, a threatened being. China, which has been over centuries been a very inward-looking nation with a continental outlook, has suddenly started looking external. And China is making big inroads. The so-called strength of pearl strategy of bases and diplomatic ties, Africa to Middle East, South Asia, are all very much part of this strategy. China has got an established base in Djibouti, in the south of Oman, and there is the Gulf. And China is also looking for bases it's got focus on the links in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, UAE, Kenya, Seychelles, Tanzania, and more recently they made a big move into Maldives, which is very close to us. So, and PLA Navy today is a major force. In fact, some estimate that it's got more units than the US Navy has got. It's got about 350 units plus, which include aircraft carriers, surface combatant destroyers, frigates, submarines, and you name it, all types of vessels it's got. And some of its vessels are even getting bigger than that of the US Navy. And they also got a very potent, nearly a 200 strong Coast Guard, so which they can leave in South China Sea to look after, and their forces can go all over. While I don't see an immediate conflict, but this is something, sometime with the land borders, we still witness time to time confrontation. Never know when it sparks into the sea, something that we have to be careful. Now, historically, India has never, even when we pursued our own interests, we have never interfered with sovereignty of any other state. It's always been for a cooperative approach, and maritime security is an area where all nations need to cooperate together, because the challenges to maritime security, even unconventional, cut across, and there are no land borders or walls like on land. So any threat that develops in, say, Pacific can very quickly move into Indian Ocean, can move into the Atlantic, and so on. So to safeguard our regional interests, we need to look at what is maritime domain awareness, as we call it today. It's defined by understanding of anything associated with maritime domain that could impact security, safety, economy, or environment. It is something that needed on a continuous basis. And it's just not on the land alone, on the surface alone, it's even underwater today. And today, as I mentioned, cyber surveillance is also very important. Closer cooperation to enhance MDA would enable continuous surveillance, identification of hostile threats, and pass it on. We need patrolling by ships, aircraft, UAV, space-based surveillance, and underwater-based sensors. All are used for maritime domain data. And India took a major step in this by setting up an information fusion center at Gurugram in 2018. And we are collaborating with all nations in the region and multinational agencies. Today it generated so much interest in cooperation that we have 24 international liaison officers from 20 countries. It's established worldwide linkage with 133 partners from 57 countries, which include navies, coast guard, maritime agencies, and major shipping associations and companies. So we are able to exchange information of the maritime arena with many nations. Now it's also happened sometimes we are able to warn a country that there is a cyclone or a storm developing, or if a vessel catches fire, like some years ago, you remember, in the border between India and Sri Lanka, we had a major fire, and both Indian and Sri Lankan maritime forces worked together to get rid of it. We are also able to monitor and catch any ships that try and dump, pollutants into the sea in area which is not. Now, as far as the importance of the region, Indo-Pacific for us was highlighted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Shangri-La Dialogue in 2018, when he said that the 21st century destiny of the world will be deeply influenced by course of developments in the Indo-Pacific region. Further brought out that India's strategic outlooks will be India's own engagements in the Indo-Pacific from shores of Africa to that of America will be inclusive, promote a democratic and rule-based international order. We'll work with others to keep our seas and airspace free and open. This is how we wish ourselves and our partners to proceed in this vast region. Incidentally, freedom of navigation and access to seas, which we are talking of today, was something that happened in ancient times. But India allowed a freedom even then. Our rulers maintained powerful navies like the Cholas, Sri Vijayas, and even the Samudris. And even while Sri Vijaya Empire had actually dominated Straits of Malacca and exercised control for nearly 2 centuries, we never stopped any other nation from, free transit of that area. Now, on the concept of working together, we have been leveraging inter-cooperation by bilateral and joint naval multilateral exercises. Maritime forces, navies and coast guards have always played a significant role. Port visits by ships at regular intervals and coordinated patrols along maritime boundaries, and during anti-piracy operations, ships from multiple parts of the world, naval ships joined together. We have got staff talks, etc. Now, one of the early initiatives that we were part of was the Quad, or the Quadrilateral Dialogue, 4 democratic nations across the region: India, US, Japan, Australia. Actually, following the tsunami of 2004, these 4 nations had got together, the maritime forces, to provide humanitarian and disaster relief. In 2007, the group met again on the sidelines of Asian Regional Forum. It was an initiative put forward by the then Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. While it was dormant for a while, it was revived again in 2017, made Quad 2.0, and virtually trying to keep free and open Indo-Pacific in this area. Now, exercise Malabar, which started as a bilateral between Indian and US navies in '92, has since become multilateral with Japan and Australia, or all Quad nations as participants. There are times when it conducted 2 or 3, but at the last meeting, all the nations took part. This was held off Sydney. And considering the economic and military capabilities of Quad nations, a joint maritime exercise such as Malabar has got a potential to send deterrent messages, especially nations like China, which is trying to dominate the area. Another one is exercise Milan. It's a multilateral exercise. We started in '95 with navies of Indonesia, Singapore, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. Today, it has emerged as a major forum for improving operational interaction between not only navies of the region, but virtually across the world. The 2002-04 exercise saw participants from 50 participant nations. Now, apart from exercise at sea, there were professional interaction, and even the industry benefited. The Indian industry was able to showcase their capabilities. So actually, more and more nations are wanting to join Milan and other exercises, and many across the globe are looking at India as a reliable partner, especially to ensure security in the maritime domain. So joint naval exercises have become a big way of meeting emerging threats and also warning about the threats that emerge. Now, Indian Navy and Coast Guard have been generally interacting with maritime force of other nations. Another major initiative that put forward by India was at the East Asia Summit, the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative. basically to manage and conserve the entire area. It seeks to create partnership with like-minded countries across from eastern shores of Africa to Western Pacific Ocean, covers a wide spectrum. It's a very collaborative approach, non-treaty based. We have 7 pillars: maritime security, ecology, resources, capacity building, disaster and risk management, science, technology and academic cooperation, and trade connectivity and maritime transport. Now, India has also been talking of other platforms you all would have heard of: Sagar Security and Growth, and the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, which is an initiative taken by the Indian Navy to meet regularly, interact with the regional navies and the thing. Now, India's plans in the coming year for the maritime sector, we can realize the importance that's been given, was mentioned by Prime Minister Modi at his inauguration of the Maritime India Summit in 21, where he said India is very serious about growing in the maritime sector and emerging as a leading blue economy of the world. Now, blue economy is actually an entire infrastructure. It focuses on upgrading of current infrastructure to next generation, and the focus will be on upgrading port community system. He further brought out that major investments are being done in development of storage facilities. Work is also happening to boost connectivity and integrating ports and coastal economic. And then he launched the Maritime India Vision 2030, which is for promoting use of renewable resource of energy. An increase of nearly 60% of the total energy will be renewable energy by 2030. We are also developing world-class infrastructure ports like Vadhavan, Paradeep, Deen Dayal Port in Kandla, operating domestic waterways and transportation more environment friendly, all planned to be completed by 2030. Now, we are also looking at an eastern waterway connecting with regional connecting including Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar to increase trade and cooperation. So there are close to 400 projects with an investment of 31 billion. And the Sagarmala product, as you drive through the shipyard region, you will find the Sagarmala very prominently put there. All these there are about another 574 projects at 82 billion for maritime sector and linked infrastructure to be completed by 2035. I would say that looking back, as long as India used oceans effectively, it was a land of prosperity and enormous wealth. After the neglect of the seas from the 14th century, there was a revival of maritime outlook post-independence, and the 21st century, we are once again looking at it. And our strategic location in the Indo-Pacific, where the destiny of the world is set to be controlled in the 21st century, we should focus more on maritime thoughts and policies. And both our maritime forces, Indian Navy and the Coast Guard, have been interacting. Significant role India's connect across the region. Initiatives such as Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, Quad, Melon, Excise, Malabar, and other bilateral agreements are all pointers towards what we're doing. Let me sum up by saying that in the 21st century, there are few areas of greater strategic importance than the maritime domain, and more specifically the Indo-Pacific. Most literal as well as non-literal nations are coming down to the view that a free and open Indo-Pacific remains the key to regional prosperity. Partnership between maritime nations or a cooperative security approach offers the best option to meet. Let me once again reiterate what the Prime Minister Modi had said, that India is very serious about growing in the maritime sector and emerging as a leading economy, blue economy of the world. It's also worth recalling the prophetic words of Sardar K.M. Panikkar, who said, "Future of India will undoubtedly be decided on sea." Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral Murali. Now the floor is open for questions.
My name is Dr. K. Simon. This is not a question, but a remark. Your talk has been quite timely in the sense that next week India is celebrating the National Maritime Day. We preside on the 5th of April every year. It was on that day Mahatma Gandhi flagged off the first Indian passenger ship at Mumbai, taking passengers to London. That's an important event which we celebrate, and the 62nd National Return Day we celebrate. Just for information. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very important day, National Maritime Day. So it's been started across.
You have got different navies around the world flexing muscles, right? You have got the Chinese doing it, you have got the Americans doing it, now India is also doing it. But then, in what way does it help them? I mean, is it to thwart the ambitious plans of each other's, or so all of them are having powerful navies, right? So, in what way does it help? Of course, the piracy is all the time is there. Of course, Indian Coast Guard and all, they are looking at it. But then I'm saying, in what way does it help? All of them are flexing muscles.
See, it's like this.
It's kind of a deterrent. Yeah, please.
See, earlier there were just a few navies which are operating. The US Navy and earlier the Royal Navy was operating the area. They were virtually dominating the area. Today there are nations like India that has come, and like I mentioned, we are not being for occupying territories or controlling territories. We want to keep the oceans free and open. So more and more cooperation between navies will ensure will happen, and moment we exercise together, interoperability. I remember many years back, I think it was in '77, when I was serving on board as a young officer on board the Indian Naval carrier, Vikram. We operated with the Australian Navy and the New Zealand Navy. And we were virtually operating off the coast here and off Lakshadweep. We spent 2-3 days exercising together. Now that brought in a lot of interoperability. We learned some of the things from them like they had learned from us. So similarly, when we exercise with other navies, you get to know each other and you develop friendly relations. Now when you develop friendly relations, you will not go and attack that country. Now somebody like China, who has been threatening the South China Sea, he's been doing what is known as salami slicing. Makes very small changes, but at the end of it, is a big change. Like he's been creating artificial islands and claiming territory over it. Now the UN UNCLOS talks of up to 200 nautical miles, but if there are two nations in between, you've got to divide equally. China is not willing to do that. But when China's know that these navies are operating together, it's a threatened being to them. That tomorrow if I do something extra, I may get it back from all other nations together. So that is something that which is why more and more, and if we operate together, like if I've been operating with the Sri Lankan Navy or the Sri Lankan Coast Guard, we do regular exercises, then you think twice before having a war with them. Unless, of course, if the national something happened, that happened. But today, more and more navies, nobody wants a direct confrontation. So that is why it's important for joint exercises. And if China or somebody trying to flex his muscle, it will be countered by the other. Because most of the other regional navies don't have that kind of force level. So they are looking at India. Even since we are right here, our support, even America, Japan, France, Russia, all are looking to India for cooperation. So this is, we got a pivotal point.
So, 2015, Indian Navy was the third ranking. By 2025, what is the state of Indian Navy? It is still standing on the third position in the world ranking.
I mean, in numbers, yes. What happens is, while we have very ambitious plans, like my colleague Raju Matthews here, we made a lot of plans. We have got our plans perspective, but the country doesn't have that kind of finances to provide. So we have built up what we need is at the moment, whereas China has been probably overtake US Navy. So we would be still around the first.
I was amazed when you said India Navy presence in Antarctica. How is that? Can you explain it?
See, when Antarctica nation started going for exploration, we also sent our scientists. Some of our ships had gone, and we operated in that area, and now we got a permanent camp there, manned by our scientists. So we are looking at it. There are a lot of metals, minerals there. So we have certain areas with us which we can explore and take the thought.
Can I? With President Trump, everybody is concerned about his policy. Does that affect us in any way in the, what do you feel about the Quad or?
See, as of now, his are political statements. As far as the armed forces are concerned, Quad and other Malabar exercises will continue until politically something is said. But I don't think that will happen because it is interests of US that India, Australia, Japan cooperate with it. Because otherwise they would be singled out by China.
On the trade point, speed is the essence. International trade particularly. How much speed has been achieved for the movement of ships in the say last 10-15 years? How much speed has been achieved in the movement of ships last 10-15 years? And how much speed is likely to be achieved as per the plans of working in the next 15-20 years? I say this because I attended a Dubai 2050 conference recently. They said that by 2050, they expect to fly from Dubai to New York in 1 hour and 15 minutes, and from Dubai to San Francisco in 2 hours and 10 minutes, almost 25%. So then they want to increase travel time, reduce travel time, increase volume. So maritime, from the trade point also, unless the speed is substantially increased, not much of a scope for trade to develop through the sea route. Probably that may apply to defense also, I don't know.
See, the naval ships, and especially some of our faster, smaller craft, can operate 35 to 40 nautical miles per hour. They normally operate between 15 to 20. The mercantile marine normally operates around 15 to 20. It can go up to 20 nautical miles per hour, 25 nautical miles. Otherwise, it needs a lot more power. And until everybody turns nuclear or something like that, we may not have that kind of thing to have the large force levels going. So, mercantile ships' speed increase will not be that drastic, at least unless some tremendous growth in technology happens. As of now, it's unlikely because you have to cut through water. And smaller, lighter ships, you can, raise it above water level, but that can only happen inland waters are very close to the thing. But that will not happen over major container ships, etc.
So you were talking about the naval exercise by all other countries. But how will we allow others to know our secrets or our technology?
No.
Vice versa.
No, when you say technology, like we are interacting with them, but we will not disclose our. Generally, when you operate together, there are common trends that are followed by everybody. But you will not be disclosing some of your secrets or things to them. That you keep it there. And they also do that, but we are able to operate together. If both of us are told there is a target, ships from India, say Sri Lanka and say Australia, they are going together towards the target, that we exchange information, all that data we do. But some of the other things we don't disclose. But if they are looking at, say, today in Milan, they came and saw the Indian technology which is displayed in Visakhapatnam. They want to come and buy ships from us, they want to buy our generators, they want to buy our power plant, they want to buy our radars, most welcome to it. Finally, it is your intention and thinking, planning, which is a confidential. The equipment itself.
But our officers also go and study in abroad, like US Academy and all that, no? Especially about the maritime technologies and all that.
Yeah, we go and study there, like we have there people coming and studying at our places. So that's all general awareness and listening, but nobody will tell you the secrets. Classified talks, like there are even in at the academy here in Wellington, Staff College. There are certain classified talks the foreign students are not allowed to attend. Something similar happened to our people when they are there. But overall they know, but more than that is the kind of friendship that they built. I was surprised that during attending a seminar on in the COVID time over Zoom, suddenly somebody from Bangladesh, an officer, now is a rare admiral, and he called me by name. He said, "Sir, I was a student in Staff College." Of course, I had forgotten, but he remembered that I had taught him in the Staff College in Wellington. So that kind of closeness develops when you do this.
Good evening, sir. My name is Abraham. Just out of curiosity, you are awarded AVSM twice. How is it possible?
Ask the President of India.
I'm Suresh Kumar. I work in Kochi shipyard in early 70s. I had interaction with your great Vice Admiral Krishnan. He was our first CNLT, and I was junior engineer there at that time. You know that the equipments for shipyard, so that I'm concentrating on the shipyard area. That big crane, 150-ton gantry crane. You know that without that crane, the shipyard cannot function. So when Vice Admiral Krishnan came there, as you are doing in the Navy, he put a name called Operation Goliath. That's such a big structure. And he put some of us in charge of that, and we have successfully completed, even though it took 4 or 5 years those days. And now it is becoming much, that much time is not required now to, after that. Now my question is, while you have traveled many countries, how is the shipyards function there, and how any direct experience with how they, because I understand that in Korea and China, a number of shipyards are there. Of course, we have got, so have we got more open, or rather space for more shipyards in India? Is the financial restrictions are there, or we are satisfied with this facilities available in Nasagan or Vizag shipyard and Kochi shipyard?
That's not really my core subject, but let me tell you that I have been to many shipyards abroad in other countries, especially in Russia, since I was posted there, and some of our ships were being built there in submarines, so we had close interaction. Now, technology-wise, some of those shipyards are a little higher technology because our own research and development was just growing, or now it's growing, etc. Now, the shipyards that we have built, I think we have enough to do this, provided we are able to get it going. Now, one of the problems, since you have been in Cochin shipyard, as I recollect from history, the shipyard here and in Korea were built at the same time with the same Japanese knowledge. And they built many more ships before we came with the ship with the Queen's name, Rani Padmini. So we had our own issues of labor and other issues, etc. But shipyards which have not been doing that have been doing extremely well. Like even Calcutta shipyard, while they were doing it, when they had initial problems, they were working. Cochin shipyard, I know experience. We had ordered some patrol boats for the Coast Guard. Well, the first ship was delayed, but they caught up and they delivered the whole project well ahead of time. So we have enough capabilities to do that. If you want to be like Prime Minister has talked of the maritime development. So by 2030, probably we'll have more development, more this area, and will allow us to build more.
I think that's a very good question. From the financial point, I can tell you, as he correctly said, Cochin shipyard and the shipyard in Seoul, Korea, was built in the same year. In the same year, with the same technology. Technology was from Scotland, Glasgow, from Ireland. And engineering detail was from by Japanese firm. Rani Padmini was the first ship brought in September 1980. After that, 1 month later, in November only, the first ship was built in Seoul. Today, Cochin Shipyard's turnover is 5,000 crores and we are proud of that. The Seoul South Korean shipyard's turnover is 1,20,000 crores. You can imagine that.
So Rani Papini launching, I was there. I was all there.
The depth of Indian waters are actually the depth, whatever the depth which operates in the draft and other things. When you say in the Chinese area and other things is going to a lot of 22 meters, but we hardly get around 14 to 15 meters in the different ports. Actually, that again they are major issues. Is there any activities taken up in that area?
See, we are looking at, like in the western coast of India, it's very shallow, it's going, so we have to do a lot of dredging to get it. But if you look at Vizhinjam today, he's able to get 20 meters drop without dredging. But in the east coast, you have much, like one advantage for us because west coast, because it's so shallow, submarines can't get very close to it. So we are able to maneuver his way. Whereas in east coast, you will get right there. Like in 71 war, we destroyed a Pakistani submarine which had just come to the entrance of Visakhapatnam. So similarly, there are ports in so that's an area that's a nature's thing we can't do. So we have to dredge and make the area.
So if a war breaks out between India and China at this point of time in the Indian Ocean region, do you think our boats are much better than the PLA navies? Because you were telling that their Coast Guard has got around 200 boats and the Navy can go across the globe.
So, how good are both when compared to this? And how strong are we? Like you told, the finances of the government also paves the way for increasing the number of boats in India.
Now, our force levels are enough to tackle any threat to India, whether it be from China or anybody else. We can deploy our forces so that they don't come into our waters to threaten us. Of course, in any war, there may be some damages here and there. So what I was saying was China, what I wanted to explain further, in South China Sea, they got their Coast Guard vessels which are there. And if you see the countries which are around, not one of them can stand up even to 10% of Chinese threats. See, that is what is important. Therefore, he is able to free to move all over the place. Now, what happened to the even US? Even today, they were deploying forces roaming all over the world because there is no direct threat happening to US. Till Japan attacked Hawaii, they were not expecting anything. Whereas UK, Royal Navy had threats close around, so they had to keep some forces there before that. In our case, our maritime forces are quite capable, even with the force levels we have, to tackle any threat towards India from any country. So it's like boxing. You may not win the bout, but you can give enough punches for him to think twice before trying to attack him, and he is a boxing expert.
Sir, you have served in India's aircraft carriers and all, as you said. So, what do you foresee the future of carrier-based strike groups compared to submarine warfare? Because my point is, any object that's on the surface of water or anywhere on the land can be precisely tracked by reconnaissance satellites. But any submarine that is a few hundred meters below the sea level is virtually impossible to detect. So, with the intercontinental ballistic missiles and etc. being launched now from nuclear submarines, what will be the future of a nuclear aircraft versus a submarine? What do you foresee as a military strategist?
See, today the technology gives us, it's not like the old days. The old days when we started off, people had to just keep a lookout and try to spot ships. Then the radars came in. Then the technology improved, you are able to monitor his conversation. Today your satellite-based technology not only to detect, you are also able to underwater, you are able to, at various places you are able to get this going. Plus
the anti-ship, while he fires a missile, I have anti-missile missiles going. Whether it's aircraft or not when it comes in. So virtually if you have a carrier group, about 200 nautical miles around it, you can provide a shield before anybody comes in. Because we have other ships deployed ahead of it, trying to detect the submarines, all that. So it is a cat and mouse game, technology either ways.
What does a naval attaché do, especially Moscow, very friendly? Just a general question. Naval attaches are there everywhere, we see them here also.
Yeah, so you have to look at interests of your navy. You are interacting with those areas there, interacting with other attaches. Like in with Russia, we have a lot of procurement, so that you are monitoring and getting it going. And today with joint exercises going on, all this going, so it's a very busy time for the naval attaches because you're planning exercises.
Thank you. I think we've had fairly good question answers, and I believe Admiral Murali has answered quite well. And thank you very much. Now I would request our Honorable Secretary and Joseph to propose a vote of thanks.
Good evening all. Indeed a very interesting subject, very important for the nation's prospective view and relevance of maritime domain for India, and not only the protection of the nation, the economic growth, the blue economy which we are envisaging. So with so much of infrastructure from a civil engineering perspective view, we are in so much of the port sector is one which is growing at 20%. So we need to do so much of works that there are very few, and look at that India was totally dependent on foreign countries for the infrastructure development 15 to 20 years down the line. Now government has made so much of startup that most of the design happening in the maritime structures is done in India, especially in IIT Madras. They have an oceanography department which take care of the entire thing, and we don't have foreign consultant. When I started my career in 2000s and all, I was in most of the ports design structures of the berthing structure and other thing. We always had to have people from abroad. 80% of the job was done by us. In last 25 years, we have seen that it is totally done by us. Within India, we have developed that capability level, and lot of funding is given by the government to come up, and we have so much of green ports which we are planning, which has to come through, but MOE of environmental sanction and all are not helping us, but then very sure that the blue economy is the future and the growth, and whatever said and how the air cargo or whatever comes up, the history if you look at, the growth was on the sea, development was based on the sea, and it will continue because to be Europe they say to be a man you have to go into the sea to have the real experience. We are only on 27% of the land, 73% is out there. So we talk about the entire growth or entire this billion population or overall 600, 700 billion population we talk about or 140, but then real element is out there in the sea. And thank you very much for enlightening us with this wonderful presentation covering the entire aspect right from the history when it started and what is the potentiality of growth for India and where we have gone down a bit and now we are catching up quite pensively. Thank you for enlightening us in this particular aspect, and especially as in the Institution of Engineers, we have across India, we have 125 centers. On 5th of April, we celebrate Maritime Day across all the centers, and in fact, there is a lot of strong marine engineering community which is very much connected with the development growth of marine engineering. So thank you very much for enlightening the other aspect also, including our forces and the requirement. But definitely a very, very important topic, and may I have the privilege of handing over memento. May I call BCG sir to hand over the memento to our speaker of the day, Admiral M.P Muralidharan. I would like to thank our dynamic President Bibu for leading us and our treasurer for the welcome address, and Dilip for doing that. And all the members who have come over here, it was a very good session, a lot to carry on and a lot to think over also, because this is important, even though it's challenging and this thing. So, but I think because we are pumping a lot of money in infrastructure nowadays, it's not that India won't have scarcity of funds in the future to make sure that we are capable of withstanding our capability. And next week we have M.Y. Piley Memorial Lecture on Constitutional Morality, the Soul of India's Democracy by Justice A.K. Jayashankar Nambiar, Honorable Judge High Court of Kerala, on Remembrance by Dr. Lalitha Matthew. So that is on 4th April, Friday. And on 11th April, we have a panel discussion. And 15th, we have the Kerala Management Leadership Award. So we have a lot of dignitaries today. Thank you, VCG, for joining us today. And we have our MC member Shaktimani here, and lot many people who have come over here. And this being in the year ending, financial year ending, and Ramzan coming in, so there is a lot of holidays. But thank you all for coming in and joining us. Keep connected to KMA. Because management, lot of developments has to be done together. And wish you all a very good evening.
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गावे तब जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय